So another cool thing that has been on the news was the discovery by the Curiosity rover on Mars.
Oh yeah.
Of this mineral called these manganese oxide minerals, right? Sounds kind of like, oh yeah, some more minerals on Mars, yay!
Yeah,
but actually, it's really cool because what it means is that these things only form in the presence of a highly oxidizing sort of environment, and that's usually on the Earth anyway, usually associated with lots of oxygen in the atmosphere.
Yes.
So basically, it seems to be a marker for, at least in this part of Mars's history, which is really ancient.
Yeah.
And at the time where we know there was loads of liquid water and much more habitable conditions, we were talking about in the Mars episode.
Sure.
One of the Mars episodes, at least.
Too. Anyway,
Yeah.
there was an ancient Mars episode.
At this time, it also now seems like there was potentially quite a lot of oxygen in the atmosphere.
And this is, so we're talking, I don't know a huge amount about this. So they're talking free oxygen as in molecular oxygen, or are they talking oxidizing species like peroxides or whatever?
Yeah, it's hard to know exactly. And the reason they settle on molecular oxygen mainly because they can't really find evidence for other types of things that could oxidize manganese in this deposit.
And they don't find any other chemical species and things that are sort of like, oh, that looks like it's got some
chlorates or whatever. Yeah. Which do exist on Mars and could also produce this kind of effect, but they haven't found them in this particular deposit.
Yeah.
And the fact that on Earth these things are formed primarily through reaction with molecular oxygen. So molecular oxygen is like O2, the same oxygen that's in the atmosphere that you're breathing.
What
and all
we
that stuff.
are breathing. Yeah.
So if you take that, so that's that they basically by process of elimination they say that the most likely source of oxidation for this mineral is molecular oxygen in the atmosphere at that time, which is I could sort of get on board with that. Just about.
Well,
but it basically means that there could have been an atmosphere that was essentially breathable. Maybe not to us, but
there was
to
molecular oxygen to aerobic organisms.
Yeah, you could have aerobic metabolism, which just seems completely mad because oxygen is on Earth intimately associated with photosynthesis and it's produced biologically.
Yeah, and consumed. Keeps most of the high-level multicellular biosphere going.
Yeah, exactly.
So
we wouldn't exist without oxygen in the atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly. So they're not suggesting... So this molecular oxygen, okay, so most of the molecular oxygen formed on Earth is from plants.
Yeah.
They're not suggesting that they don't think it's plants.
No, they don't think it's plants. They think that you can... So when Mars lost its magnetic field... a shitload more radiation was then allowed in, and the radiation basically splits up water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen.
Yeah.
Hydrogen escapes space because it's super light.
Yeah.
And oxygen doesn't, way less quickly.
Yes, or it reacts with stuff anyway.
Yeah, so it tends to react back with the stuff that's there. So that's actually part of the reason why the surface of Mars is red, is because it's been oxidized by oxidative reactions and shit from radiation, but they reckon that because way back in this time of Mars history there's a lot more water, that you can have a lot more hydrolysis, a lot more oxygen produced through this mechanism, and then form these minerals. So you could probably account for it without biology. But there's this cool on Earth, these manganese oxides don't exist before the rise of photosynthesis, and they track the kind of rise of oxygen in the atmosphere almost perfectly. Like if you look back in the rock record, you start seeing them at the time when oxygen started being produced in the atmosphere, around the time that photosynthesis started. It's just this, I mean, we don't know what happened on Mars, but this is kind of like neat little, it seems like there might have been a neat little rise in oxygen around the time that we know Mars was habitable. So it's like, what's going on there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, on Earth, we didn't lose the magnetic field, so we don't have that pathway of getting oxygen.
But even if it wasn't produced by biology...
I was about to say, even then, you've got a habitable environment on Mars at that time, okay? You've got drinkable water for modern organisms on Earth. We could have gone back and drunk some of the stuff that Curiosity's been sampling. So there's probably drinkable, good, neutral... pretty tasty water, sort of rolling around on the surface of Mars, and the temperature's pretty good, seemingly, and you've got molecular oxygen floating around. Yeah, which is a pretty potent energy source for biology. Yeah, so you've got an environment that is, that's as close as you're going to get to a habitable environment Really, I mean, what else do you don't really need a huge.
Yeah, what else do you want?
Yeah, so it all comes down to the origin of life and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
as we've talked about before.
It's just another interesting sort of piece of.
Yeah,
another little surprise from ancient Mars. You know, this wouldn't have been predicted, because actually what you get when you know, weather the type of rock you find on Mars with water, you get water which is the opposite. So you get water that forms the opposite type of minerals, which are called reduced minerals. So oxidized. To find something that's that highly oxidized in that type of environment is really surprising, and suggests that there was a shitload of oxygen.
Yeah, they're hard to oxidize, aren't they, man?
Yeah, they're really hard, really slow, really hard to oxidize. And actually, even without a catalyst, and the catalysts on Earth are usually bacteria.
Yeah, or organics.
It's still very slow. So it would have suggested a shitload of oxygen, or a catalyst like bacteria. Yeah. So these minerals themselves could be potentially
literally biosignatures.
Yeah. Could be the result of metabolism. We won't know that until we can actually basically sample them and return them and look at them in labs and stuff. But
very interesting, very intriguing.
Yeah. Another just big stamp of approval of landing in Gale Crater. What a great place to have landed.
Yeah, amazing.
Just keeps giving.
So much stuff there.
Yeah.
Got to send I mean, they probably won't send another mission there right now. The 2020 rover is probably not going there. In fact, when I was at a conference, there was like some of the 2020 team were there, and they were talking about how there was like a debate. Basically, they wanted the astrobiology people to have on like what they thought of what landing sites, what sorts of things they should be looking for. And some people were saying, we should go back to Gale Crater, and other people were saying we can't really, that's something that's difficult to sell to the public and this sort of stuff, and going to that same place. But I think there's huge value in going back there.
Yeah, you've
ground truthed a really good area that's got amazing, geology,
huge diversity,
huge potential for habitable environments, ancient habitable environments.
And it tracks this really interesting part of the history as well. Like Mount Sharp, which is the mountain in the middle, it's all these layers that basically go forward in time through this sort of transition from habitable to potentially uninhabitable. So it's just all laid out for you there. So yeah, I mean, I'd be massively in favour of them sending something back there.
Yeah,
especially like a sample return or something.
Exactly, something with a drill or something like that, or a human mission.
Yeah.